So in part B of this tutorial, we're going to look at setting up and using some special bus processing, including a load of delays and reverbs that can all be shared from each individual mixer strip. So to start with, we've got a short drum reverb that's set up on one channel, one bus. We've got a long and hazy drum reverb, which is really sort of just a lo-fi sounding algorithm, not a impulse response based one, but just Silververb, which is particularly kind of trashy sounding, but any sort of spring reverb with some of the highs rolled off would work. Next we've got a delay bus setup with some eighth note delay, and then finally we've got some parallel compression here with some very low thresholds and very high ratio compression. So we've got about 24 decibels of gain reduction in that part there. But we've got it muted at the moment because that's going to be one of the last things we mix back in at the end of the tutorial. So let's have a little look at the reverse clap sound and see that that's going to the short drum reverb on bus 2. And we can see there that we've got a plate reverb with under a second's worth of reverb time. We've got no dry signal when using effects on the bus, and we've got just the wet level at about halfway there. And there's the difference in the tone with it muted and unmuted. And you can dial in the amount of reverb you want by just changing the amount that's being sent from that channel to the bus. So we can balance that with other channels. Next here we've got the hi-hats that are also going to that bus as well. And we can hear the difference in tone with that muted and unmuted. And it really is quite a subtle effect on that particular layer. Next we've got the open hi-hat, which we can be a bit more heavy-handed with the amount of reverb that we send, with the amount of signal rather that we send to that processor. So you can really hear that that's adding depth to those sounds. Next we've got the ride, which, like the open hi-hat, because it functions on the offbeat and it's a very big sustaining sound, we can really use that short reverb to our advantage. So that really adds a sense of depth and space to the sound. Next up is the percussion that's also sharing that short reverb. And as you can hear, it really again adds a sense of space and depth to the sound. And then finally on this short reverb we're going to dial in that reverse sound to just change the texture of it and use the stereo dimensions of it just to enhance it slightly. Next we've got our delay bus here. We see if we just dial in a tiny bit of that hi-hat, we can really add some pace to the rhythm and really enhance the groove in a very, very simple but very effective way. And we can do the same with the percussion track as well. And finally, adding some delay to that reverse crash cymbal as well, just to help that wash out into the next section. So next we're going to look at adding on this reverse crash just a bit of reverb, a bit of that kind of grainy, long hazy reverb. And we're just going to keep dialing up the level to that send. And now with that extra reverb, it's really working more as a textural effect to enhance the sound. And now on the percussion bus, we're going to automate some of that send. So that works nicely as a fill type effect. And with that automation in place, we can create quite a nice atmospheric fill at the end of the 8 and 16 bar sections. We'll probably need to do a little bit of tweaking to change the level slightly, but it does make a massive difference to the drum fill. And we'll have a little look at some of the delay send automations as well. We'll send a little bit more delay to the bus for that fill as well. So let's just have a little look with those delays, and we can actually, with that delay signal and that delay auxiliary, we can also send a bus to another bus. So I'm sending that delay actually back to the hazy reverb as well. So next we'll have a little look at the parallel compression bus. So all of the channels bar the reverse clap are being sent to bus 4, and that is going to have parallel compression applied to it with a quick attack, fast release, a high ratio and a low threshold to give us that full 24 decibels of compression. So most of the drum signal is probably going to be compressed there from the bottom up. So you can see with that channel muted that the compression is working there. So we're just going to turn the fader down and unmute the channel and blend that back in to the drum mix to really give it some extra body. So as you can hear there, that actually adds quite a bit of extra weight and body to the drum sound. That parallel compression is really amping up the average level of our drum track and really giving it that professional feel and that professional sound that a trance drum track really needs. We've also left quite a lot of headroom in the mixer as well, so nothing's clipping. We still can turn up individual elements of the drum mix, and we can also turn up the drum submix where everything is being sent to, including the parallel compression and the rest of the auxiliaries. But what we're going to focus on here now is this special reverse effect. So I've muted the reverse crash cymbal because if we reverse the bounce of this drum mix for these last couple of bars and have that reversed in there, it's going to play forward. So we'll leave that out of the bounce but include it in the mix later on. So I've bounced out already this little drum mix here with the extra automation on the kick drums as well, which we had in the previous 16, but that's taken out there because we will add a tiny fill to that kick drum in addition to the reversed effect. So now that we've got this bounced out, we can literally go to the file and reverse it and have a little listen. So that first half sounds really good. So we're just going to reduce the size of that file to half the size and push it across. We're not going to remove any of that automation, that's already been pre-programmed as well. And we'll mute the rest of the drums that all of that fill comes from. And we're also going to swap out this kick drum fill that I've made a customized one. That is the original fill, and this one here is the extra one that we are going to actually use on top of the reverse sound effect. So we've got a little drum roll into it as well. So we'll just get rid of that and pop in the new one. We won't change any of the automation, etc. And some of the velocities have just been edited so it amps up in volume and ramps up across the fill. So let's have a little listen to this together. So with that extra little fill there, it really does help that reverse effect. So now we're going to add in some effects to the chain there. So we're going to roll off some of the bass because we want the kick drum to be powerful at the end of the fill. So next we're going to use the sample delay again to employ the harsh effect and make the stereo width enhanced. And then we're going to overdrive it a touch to kind of dirty up the loop. And finally we're going to apply an automation filter sweep to a low pass filter. So we're just going to remove all the highs as that loop progresses. And there, with all that in place, it makes a very effective fill and turnaround for an end of a 32 bar section. So let's just hear that in context. So that's working nicely. We can see that we've actually sent that to the drum bus submix as well, so everything is still controlled by that drum submix fader, all the effects, all the loops, all the parts, all the fills. So we have total control for later on in the mix when we start adding in bass parts and lead synths, pads, etc. And we don't really need to be too concerned that the drum mix isn't absolutely perfect at this point because of that fact. So you will have to go back and do some reactive mixing, some retrospective editing when you add new stuff in, especially on the kick and bass part. You'll need to look at that more closely to make sure those two integrate and work really well together as a unit. And we're also going to add in the next tutorial some extra percussion loops and some extra drum layers as well. So stuff will get added in, so you don't need to worry about everything being perfect just at this particular juncture. So to surmise what we've done in the last couple of tutorials, we have been doing some extra processing and adding some extra drum sounds into the drum part. We've fleshed out the arrangement a touch by making it a 32 bar loop, not actually a 4 bar loop. We've added in some more extra fills, some automation, some bus processing, and we've used some inserts creatively to enhance stereo width and the tone and texture of some of the drums as well. We've also changed the routing of the drums so they're all routed to a drum submix or a stem mix, so that everything can be controlled by the submix fader, so that we can have more careful integration of the drums with other layers later on in the production process.